Okay, first I will introduce myself. My name is Abdulrahman Albidah. I'm a PhD student at the University of Sheffield at the Plasma Dynamic Group. My PhD study is funded by Majma University to do my PhD. My research about a method to identify the magnetohydrodynamics wave modes in a sunspot. Okay, first I will show you a higher resolution image for the sunspot. You can see here from the Sweden telescope, the dark region known by the umbra, whereas the surrounding region known by the penumbra. Our research is to look at the umbra, the dark region, and to identify the MHD wave mode that propagate upward the umbra region. Okay, there is a case study, the sunspot case study. The data has been observed on the 2011 with a time period about 75 minutes with a sampling frequency approximately 100 kilometers on the surface of the sun, and with the time cadence about 1.78 seconds. This data set has been analyzed on the 2017 by David Jess and his group by analyzing it by applying a Fourier filtering on the spatial and the temporal domain at the same time. Sorry. You can see here a K omega diagram, and on the black solid box shows you the region of the bandpass filter on the spatial domain and the frequency domain. They have analyzed the data on the bandpass filter on the frequency domain between 5 to 6.3 millihertz, and on the spatial domain between 0.45 to 0.90 arcsec in phase. What they have identified, what they have got in their analysis, you can see here the movie is running now. On the top left is the data set without any analysis, the original one. And on the top right, you see the data set after being filtered in time, just in time. And on the bottom left, the data set after being filtered in the space. And on the bottom right is just the model for a comparison. Okay, and in our research, the aim of our research, my research, is to apply my method, what I'm going to describe now, on the same data set, and to identify the kink mode. This mode which is identified, and also to see if there is another mode, and also to identify or to detect the rotation of the mode as well. Okay, the first mode that, the first techniques that I'm going to do, or that I'm going to use to analyze the sunspot, is knowing by the proper orthogonal decomposition, which use the cross correlation to look for orthogonality in space. It gives us as many numbers of mode as the number of the sunspots. As the number of the snapshot. But the challenge now is to interpret which one of them is physicals, as we will have a huge number of snapshots. That means we'll have a huge number of the BOD modes. How the BOD works, it's just to take the snapshots, every snapshot, and reorganize it as a column vector. And then at the end, we will have the number of column vector as the number of snapshots, which representing a 2D matrix, and then compute the singular value decomposition to that matrix. And the output of it, we will have a 3 matrix. The first one is the phi, which contains the spatial structure of the mode, such that every column of that matrix represent a spatial structure of a single POD mode. And the second matrix is the sigma, which is a diagonal matrix, and it rank mode in terms of their power. And the last one is the V, which contain the temporal evaluation of the mode, such that every single column, if that matrix shows the time evaluation for every single POD mode. Okay, that's everything about the first method, the first techniques, which is the POD. The second techniques known by the dynamic mode decomposition, and we call it just DMD. It uses a cross correlation to look at the orthogonality in time, whereas the POD to look at the orthogonality in space. Here to look at the orthogonality in time. So the DMD will compute mode according to a unique frequencies. So hence, if we have two modes having same frequency, the DMD mode will fail to identify both of them. The result will be like a superposition of these two modes. And how the DMD works, it's similar to the POD by reorganizing every snapshot as a column vector, but here to make them in two matrices, sorry. The first matrix contains the columns from the first snapshot up to the snapshot just before the last one. And the second matrix starts from the second snapshot to the last snapshot. Hence, these two matrices are shifted just by a snapshot. And the idea of the DMD mode to find a linear relationship between these two matrices by the matrix A and find the matrix A and compute its eigenvalues and eigenvectors. But the size of the matrix A, it will be a huge, it's something about millions by millions. So it's difficult to compute its eigenvalues and eigenvectors. But the idea of the DMD is to consider like a reduced A, which is the A tilde, and the A tilde is computed by taking the singular value decomposition of the WA and using the rejection of this result to this relationship, and hence we will obtain the A tilde. And by computing the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of the A delta, we will get the DMD mode, whereas the eigenvalues contains the frequency of the DMD mode, and the eigenvectors contains the spatial structures of this DMD mode. Okay. Sorry. And here I'm showing just a snapshot of the data set that I'm going to use. And I'm showing the region that what I have picked and analyze it and use it to analyze it by the POD and DMD, which is showing on the blue box region. Okay. As I have mentioned at the beginning, the POD rank the mode in terms of their contribution by the matrix sigma. And here, the ranking of them, you can see here, the first mode has the highest energy among the all modes, and the last POD mode has the lowest energy among POD modes. Here, I have taken the first 20 POD modes, and I have taken the time evaluation of them. And then I have taken the power spectrum density. It shows that all of the 20 POD modes have their peaks between 4.3 to 6.5 millihertz, and that range of frequency that we are expected to have in the amber region of the sunspot. Okay, the first mode that we have identified by the POD and DMD, it's the fundamental sausage. Knowing by the fundamental sausage, we mean by the fundamental sausage, it's just to have one single node in the radial direction. And you can see here on this figure on the left, we have the model that we are comparing our observational signals with. And on the middle panel, it shows the POD, and the right panel, it shows the DMD mode. This POD is the first POD mode, And the time evaluation of that BOD mode has the power spectrum density of the time evaluation of this BOD mode has a frequency about 4.9 millihertz. But the challenge with the DMD, as the DMD has no physical meaning, it does not rank the mode anyway. So what we do, we are trying to find the DMD mode that are close to that peak. And here we have exactly find a DMD mode correspond to frequency of 4.9, and this DMD mode is correspond to the peak of this BOD mode, and can be seen by eye. They are correlated to each other. They have their peaks at the center. So, and the second mode is the fundamental kink, which is observed and identified by the Fourier analysis filtering, as I have shown at the beginning. And also the BOD has its peaks at 6 millihertz, and also this frequency is including in their filter range. So it could be this, the mode that they have detected, and also the DMD mode correspond to 6 millihertz. But now we need to recover the rotation. So now we have just the mode. So we need to recover the rotation of the fundamental kink as it's obtained by the Fourier filtering. One way to get the rotation is to take two DMD modes who are close to each other in frequency, and also they are orthogonal to each other in their spatial structure. Like what we have now on the left, the blue island is on the top and the red island on the bottom, whereas on the right, the red island on the right and the blue island on the left. So it can be taken as they are orthogonal to each other and their frequency are close to each other. And also these frequencies are including in the Fourier filtering analysis, as they make like a wide range of filter. If we superimpose these two DMD modes, we will get this movie, and you can see here the movie is running now, and there is a rotation is appearing now. This a superposition of two DMD mode just to recover the rotation. Now here I'm showing now the time distance diagram. On the left is the time distance diagram that obtained by the Fourier filtering analysis, and on the right is the time distance diagram which is obtained by the DMD analysis. And you can see they are much close to each other, and you can see here the red diagonal line is close to the white dashed line, which shows the dark region as it's rotated in the azimuthal direction. Okay, so now we have obtained the kink mode and the fundamental sausage, and we have recovered the rotation by applying the BOD and DMD. There is an extra mode are presenting in the data, such as the sausage overtone. What we mean by overtone, to have a higher node, more than one node in the radial direction. And here we have the first overtone. On the left is the sausage overtone models, and on the middle is the BOD, whereas on the right is the DMD that is close to the power spectrum density, the peak of the power spectrum density of the time evaluation of this BOD modes. And the last mode also that we have detected is the floating, when the number, the floating m equal 2, and also as as the sausage overtone, we have the BOD here that and the BOD here, it shows the higher correlation with the model, and the DMD mode that correspond to 7.6 millihertz, it shows also higher correlation to that model. Okay, conclusion. So now what I can say, that POD and DMD show their ability to identify the MHD wave mode and also to recover the rotation by combining two DMD modes that has been obtained by the FFT filtering. However, so the POD modes generally correspond to a mix of frequencies, whereas the DMD just identify to a unique frequency. And also a disadvantage of the DMD, it has no physical meaning, so it does not rank the mode anyway, but we use the POD to make to be as a guideline to pick or to take the easiest way to go to pick the realistic DMD mode. In my future work, I'm going to apply these two techniques on an observational data of a sunspot. You can see here this sunspot that I have analyzed. It has a closed shape to a circular shape, but in my future, I'm going to apply it on a shape which is an irregular shape. Something is, yes, which is an irregular shape. And the challenging with that is the POD will not work very well as it works in the circular direction, because the governing function on the model that I'm using here is the Bessel function, and the Bessel function are orthogonal to each other by definition. But if the model if the shape of the sunspot has an irregular shape, so this model, the cylindrical model, the circular one, will not work anymore. So we need to apply or to compare our result with a model that has an irregular shape, and then we compare our result with it. So that is the end. And if you have any question, or I'm happy.
Great, thank you very much. So I know Matt had some questions. So again, Matt, if you want to just unmute, or I can read them out, I don't mind either way.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I had to wait till I was allowed to unmute. Yeah, thank you for the talk. Yeah, interesting. Takes me back to my PhD days, because it was on something similar to this. Yeah, what did I want to ask? So, yeah, I was interested to know. So you said that you managed to identify some dominant wave modes, the POD, DMD methods. Did you compare those frequencies of those dominant fundamental waves with the expected frequencies from the theoretical model? So from the cylindrical model where you have an assumed uniform plasma?
Yes, but here we have taking like an observational data from the sun, and as it shows from the studies, the expected frequencies in the umbra is about 5 millihertz, and the frequency that we have obtained are close to that. So it's expected that we are in the safe side. So we have got the same frequency as expected.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. And then my other question is, so the on this slide, on the model on the left-hand side, this is assuming that the whole cylinder is oscillating as a single waveguide with a collective oscillation. On the left-hand side, sorry, on the right-hand side and in the middle, the oscillations that you're seeing here, how do you know that they are oscillating as a collective system rather than oscillating as a combination of much smaller strands? Because when you had the video, it looked to me like, yes, there was maybe a bit of oscillating as a global system, but it looked like the dominant oscillations were smaller systems.
Okay, but for the POD, it provides the spatial structure, this image, and also with the time evaluation. There is a time evaluation. If I run the video of this POD, you will see it's propagating. It switch it from red to blue, red to blue. It's like an oscillation.
Yeah.
So the POD provides the time evaluation, so you can add that time evaluation to the spatial structure, and then you will have like a movie, and you can see how the signal is propagating.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It just sounds like your method assumes that it's oscillating as one coherent structure.
Yes.
Whereas another interpretation could be to say, actually, the umbra is made up of many smaller structures. So many smaller strands, magnetic flux tubes, smaller.
Yes.
And maybe each of those are oscillating independently.
Yes, I have got what you mean. Okay. But in this specific data set, we can see here, it's clear, I cannot guarantee there is no small structures, but you can see by eye, it's more realistic just to assume it's one flux tube. But now, at the moment, I'm working with a different data set. It has like a small structure inside a small structure.
Okay.
So that means I have one single mode inside one bigger mode, something like that. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Good luck with that. That sounds complicated.
Yes, it's complicated, yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you.